Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Haribo Kirtaniya, Hare Krishna, Avdi, Hare Krishna, Madhurisaki, Hare Krishna, Anapayani Bhakti, Maya, Ranchor, Arman, Rajaras Bhavana, Arjun, Hare Krishna. Good to have a place to come back to keep the transcendental vibration going. Otherwise, who knows what might happen. Ranchor, are you all recovered?
Somewhat. I got sick again in the middle of the week. Because
Oh no.
it's like 30 degrees in Columbus and it's snowing. So it's really cold now. It's very different from India. I'm already missing them. It's only been like a week.
Yeah, you just hurtle through space at 700 miles an hour and go into a completely different climate. What could go wrong? Armand, where are you? In Italy or something? Oh, that's in Vrindavan.
Yeah, I just went to Vrindavan for winter break. We were actually planning to go to Mayapur, but everyone else in the family got sick instead of
I
me.
heard that. We were really disappointed. Sorry you got sick.
Thank you. So we actually changed plans and went to Govardhan instead and walked the parikrama and went to Barsana as well.
Oh, well, that explains the effulgence.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Nice. Chaitanya, you're good?
Yes, Maharaj.
No jet lag, right?
I surprisingly I was able to defeat it this year with within like 2 days. So
That's good. Excellent. So, Madhuri Saki, what's the program?
Hey Krishna, welcome back, Marge. We're very happy that you're back and we can keep up with our Youth Jam program. We have a few announcements. The first is, well, Happy New Year. In the light of a new year, our theme for this month is new beginnings. We hope that you can embrace the new year with a fresh start in your spiritual journey and focus on rekindling your devotional practices. And we hope that Youth Jam can aid whatever you do in some way. Marge, we can hand it right over to you. In last week's Youth Jam, we got to add a new edition where we got to listen to a clip from Srila Prabhupada talking about what love to Krishna is, where it has no external motivation. And then we also finished reading the 28th chapter of the Krishna book.
Are you going to play a clip of Srila Prabhupada this week?
Yes, we have one. If you could just give us a few seconds.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I'm always nervous when you say a few seconds because it could be a few seconds of Brahma.
Sangang Takta means don't be associated with the result of the work. Let the result come, whatever it may be. But you have to do your duty nicely and for the sake of God. Sangang Takta Kattita Abhinevesang cha Takta Yogasang sang Karmani Kuru Yuddhadi. Kattita means that you are the doer. Forget this. You are not the doer. You are being ordered to do it. Just like there is an example that you take a rod and kill a snake. Now the rod is practically killing the snake, but actually the rod is not responsible. Because the man who has taken the rod, who is killing the snake, he is responsible for killing the snake, not the rod. So we have to become the rod in the hand of the Supreme. Then all the reaction of our work will be, I will not be responsible for the reaction. The Lord will be responsible for that.
Madhuri Saki, what did Prabhupada say?
Were you able to see the video, Maharaj?
I couldn't see the video, but I could just hear it.
Okay, it was just pictures of Prabhupada throughout, but he was talking about how we must do our duty nicely and we must do it for the sake of God. And he was referring to a verse. I'm forgetting the exact verse. I don't think it was cited in the video, but he was talking about how just like a snake, if the snake thinks that the rod is what's killing it, it's false because it's actually the man with the rod who's hurting the snake. So just like that, we should be the rod in Krishna's hands, where whatever we do, whatever reaction we may get, we can leave it to Krishna. So we don't have to think that we're the doer.
Does that mean we're not responsible for anything?
in a way, I think we are responsible, but Rajaras Bhavana, I think, has more to say.
Go ahead, Roger Raspavada.
I was wondering about that question some time ago, and I did a little research, and this is what I've concluded is that as spirit souls, we desire, and that is where we display our independence. But what we desire we don't act on it. We're not able to act on it directly, rather the super soul takes care of that. And that is how it's done. But we can control what we desire, and then the actual actions are undertaken by the super soul who influences matter for us. And then that's how we can consider that we're not actually the doer of anything, and we don't have that control, but we can choose what we do.
Well said. In fact, I happen to have on my desk a paper with some notes I have about agency. And it starts with, I am the architect of my life. And I looked up the word architect. It means chief builder. You may have heard that saying before, architect. And the word agency means that the self acts as an agent, like a magnet acts as the agent of change upon iron filings. It modifies the shavings at a distance through its Shakti. I mean, and then as this from various Shastras, one of them's commentary from the Yoga Sutra, but it says the self has inherent power of consciousness. And of course, we have two senses of self or ego, the incorrect conception and the correct conception of self. One is I am my body, and the other one is I'm spirit soul. But then I think, as you were indicating also, we have to consider the 5 causes of action, which are listed as the location, the body, the agent, the connector between the self and inert matter called the ego, the means, the sense organs, the endeavor, movements of the life airs, and fate, the immanent being or inner impeller of all action, the supersoul. So here's the part I thought to get to. There's 4 states of agency that are mentioned. I hope this isn't too technical to start the youth jam. First is in the embodied state. It says, acting under the influence of Maya, agency is expressed through a material mind-body complex, which is under the oversight of the Lord. Number 2, agency in the embodied state when the self is acting in the service of God. This agency is expressed through the mind-body complex, but it's a form of the Lord's internal power, Chit Shakti. Number 3 is agency in the state when the self identifies with Brahman. This agency of the self remains in an unutilized quality of potential. And number 4, agency in the liberated spiritual world of Vaikuntha. This agency is the self is expressed in and through a perfected body or a siddha deha. There's more, but I think I've said enough. What do you say about that, Ranchor?
I think that this whole section, like this whole excerpt, is talking about how our karma is lost if we like surrender completely unto the Supreme. But otherwise, we still have to take responsibility if we have like a personal motive. So if we're surrendering with a personal motive, like we're committing sinful activities, and then we try to surrender with like the desire to get rid of those sinful activities, it won't necessarily work out for us because we're not fully surrendering. But if we're acting under the Lord's agency, we also have to act according to his desires as well, which precludes us from committing sinful activities.
Pretty straightforward. Sweta Manjari.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. Oh, am I frozen? Okay, I think I'm back. So actually what Rancho was saying is an interesting point because I was talking with someone about this today. Like when we surrender to Krishna, we say that our karma is being taken away, yet devotees still go through so much suffering. So I think the surrender part comes in not like the absence of suffering, but more the suffering is taken in the form of surrender to Krishna, and it becomes like a catalyst in our bhakti rather than a wound that is like gaping. It becomes a medium of our healing in our conditioning. So as we're getting closer to Krishna, a win is a win. And another thought that this verse brought up with me is that Ye yada mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. And I've thought often about how our desires are so powerful because Krishna will reciprocate. And that is why we're actually in this material world. Like if you think about Krishna as the parent who knows best, like I was looking at Radha Golokananda today, thinking about how much they know and how little I know, and how much they know about everyone's lives, and how naturally them knowing everything, they don't want us to be here because they know that this material world is like certified suffering. So that's why they want us to come back because they know everything, just like an intelligent parent knows everything for the child. And so that's why they're like trying to get us back, but because they don't want to force us, just like any child as they're growing up, they needs to have some individualism, and the parent just has to sit there and support because they don't want to force us. They're trying to reciprocate with their desires, with our desires, and if we are like, okay, like dear Krishna, dear Father, like I want to do better, but I don't know how to, they reciprocate with those desires in a way that brings us closer to them. Um, because we still have to learn, because we still have that free will. But again, it is Krishna that understands, like, as our most loving father, that this is just not the place to be if you want to be happy. So I just think in general, our desires are very powerful, but because we're not the doer and the controller, and because Krishna is, when things work out in a certain way, as we are doing our best, it just makes sense that it's his doing and not ours.
That was almost poetical. There's a lot there. You've been thinking about it deeply, I can tell. There's a simple statement that I have on my notes that may also parallel that to some degree. It makes it kind of simplified. It says the self doesn't have agency means that the self doesn't have independent agency, although we have agency, which is something that Srila Vyasadeva says in the Vedanta Sutra. He said it's the logic that proves that we have agency is that the Shastras tell us, they give us instructions to do certain things in order to attain a particular result. And if we couldn't enact those directives, then there would be no point for the Shastra to be asking us to do certain things. It would be illogical, which means that if we're given an instruction and we act upon it, that's our choice, and then some result can come from that. So you were just saying that our desires are very powerful, but we're not independent in fulfilling them. But if we have material desires, then obviously Krishna warns us it's not going to end up well. So such simple concepts to figure out karma and how it happens. I have a few notes about goal setting that I thought might be interesting because I don't know about all of you, but at this time of year, I always feel an extra enthusiasm to set goals, write them down, and it's kind of like getting a fresh notebook. I always love that because it feels like potential. Anything can happen. I can write anything I want in it. And the year when it just starts seems that it has a lot of powerful energy, good to set goals. So I was thinking about just going through that. Have any of you taken time to set goals for the 2024 and written them down? Krishangi, what kind of process do you use when you write goals down?
So whenever I'm doing something and I think that like I should not be doing this, or I should maybe do this faster or slower, I just think them in my head and then continue just thinking that and continuing the year with that thought.
I see. So you kind of identify the things that you would like to amend, and then you work on it in your head
Yeah, sometimes also write it down.
and you write it down. Okay. Anyone else? Has anybody else written their goals yet for this year? Madhurisaki, you wrote your goals on Apayani Bhakti. Are you satisfied? Do you feel surcharged? Yeah? Okay, good. Can you say anything about your process on Apayani and then Madhurisaki?
Yeah. So I set my goals about a week before the new year began, and I noticed that I was going strong through the first couple of days, but when I approached like this first week, I was still doing them, but with a lower amount of enthusiasm. So I was resonating a lot with your instruction of keeping the goals you have set in front of you always, to remember that previous you once thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, it's really helpful, isn't it? And there's something about when you're able to see them regularly, then there's a sense that the mind refocuses. It's sort of like you can't hit a target you can't see, and it's easy to forget about it. Thank you for sharing that. Madhuri Saki, do you have some thoughts or realizations about goal setting?
Yes, I think I read a book, I think it was a while ago, or it wasn't a while ago, but I read parts of it on the plane, but I was also like half asleep while I was reading it. But it was Eat That Frog, and one of the things it was talking about was consistency and not like going too crazy on your goals and just doing everything that you possibly like want to do in a year, but it talked about just starting off small and being consistent. So I found that that really helped, because in previous years I've made goals where I've like planned out every hour of my day and it's never ended up well. But this year it's been really helpful to just list out what are like at least 4 things I want to get done every day, like no matter what time, as long as I can get them done. I found that helpful.
Simplified.
Hmm.
I have that book with a lot of notes in the columns, and one of the main points that he makes in the book, Eat That Frog, the way that metaphor comes about, eat that frog, is the author says, if you have 2 frogs to eat the biggest, ugliest one first. And this is metaphorical, devotees, because then you get it over with. So one of the things he advocates is, if you have a list and there are some things that seem daunting and you don't want to do them, get in the habit of doing them first. It releases a lot of energy. Pretty powerful. Avdi.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My goal is I want to be more disciplined in practicing Krishna consciousness and not to include the part of overconfidence. Actually, I was in Detroit during Christmas holidays, and I was with my grandma. So my grandmother, I don't know, out of nowhere, she told me that we showed your kundli to some astrologer, and he said you are very lucky and all. So I just said that I'm not lucky. Everything what I do is like Krishna does. I just say him that you just my the wrath of my life, you just you want, you just take anywhere with any intensity you want. So and immediately after that I felt that there was kind of an overconfidence or ego, like I don't know what was that, talking about Krishna, that no, like I am surrendered to Krishna, so I don't want to include that. It's just like I want to practice it more and get more disciplined with my Krishna consciousness.
I'm trying to get this straight. Are you saying that you felt it in yourself when you said you had confidence in the goals that you had set, and that things weren't based on luck or something like that? And that you
Yeah,
want
so I was like, the things are not based on luck. It's like my Krishna, he does for me. I don't do anything. So actually, I didn't mean to get that overconfidence. It was my faith, but somehow I felt that it was kind of an overconfidence I felt. So I don't want to get into that again.
okay. All right. All right, let's show some notes and I'll go over them. And these are a few thoughts that I've used over time and I've extracted from various places. They're pretty straightforward, which is helpful, I think. And the first one about goal setting is a mantra, actually. And I got it from a speaker that I really like named Jim Rohn. He says to simplify goal setting, because sometimes it can feel a little ominous that, oh, what kind of goals should I set? What should I say? And so forth. So the very least you can do is decide what you want and write it down. Just get a piece of paper and a pen and write it down. And don't hesitate to take some time and think about it, and then write down everything. You can always winnow out the things that you don't want later. Mayuri, what does winnow mean?
Winnow is a verb, and it means blow a current of air through in order to remove the chaff, or it can mean to remove from grain or
Yes, it's like if you put a lot of things down, then you can take out things you don't need later, to winnow So decide what you want to write it down. That's pretty simple, right, Ranchor? And then, of course, the more specific they are, going to number 2, specific and measurable, and also attainable. If you say something that's so much of a leap, it may be discouraging because you might feel that it's grandiose and not practical. Should be a little bit out of reach so the magic can happen. And specific means to add some detail to it. Like, let's just say if somebody was like, I want to learn I want to learn verses. That's very general. But if you said I want to learn 2 verses in the next year, then that would be very specific or more specific. And then timely. Timely means I skipped over realistic because to me it's very similar with attainable. I think it's kept in there to make sure that it says smart. And timely means that there's an ending point to it, because you just say, yeah, let's complete this building this gateway, and then you don't say when, then there's no sense of forced efficiency. But if you say by April 15th, as soon as you put the time down, it's like a flag, and you start thinking, oh, I've got to work backwards. How much time do I actually have? I've found it really helpful, for instance, with the way that we're memorizing verses these days, where we say by Gaur Purnima, we have to finish memorizing the Mangalacharana. As soon as that happens, then I feel like, okay, I got to apply myself now. And if not, you think, well, I'm going to live forever anyway, so I might as well just wait. So that timely part is really helpful. So is the specific and measurable. Those are the most important points for me. And then the next one is write your goals in the present tense and make them positive. So present tense, I read the entire Srimad Bhagavatam in the next 5 years. And there's a sort of, maybe it's a pseudoscience, but it has a sense of, there's a sense, some people talk about how the mind takes what you say literally. And if you talk about it in the present tense as if you've already attained it, already attained the goal, then there's a more powerful effect. And then the next one, there are a few more after this, so I'm going to take a stop after this for just any comments so far. Number 4 is break large goals into smaller tasks. As oftentimes really big goals seem impossible, but when you break them into smaller goals, for instance, ask how many pages a day must I read to finish the Srimad Bhagavatam in 1 year? And that's an exact question that I asked myself. When I was thinking about reading the whole Bhagavatam, I thought in a general sense, I thought, well, it's so long, when will I ever find time to read it? Then I realized that if I broke it down into really small parts, which is each day is a small part, how much do I have to do? And that's when I counted the pages and then documented it. And then magically it became easy, because all I have to do is attend to what I have to do each day. And then it's just a matter of discipline, and the rewards are amazing. And you can do that with anything, obviously. For instance, practicing something, if you say 15 minutes a day. Do any of you do that with study, where you say there's a certain amount I have to do every day and you just stick to it? This is the part where I'm going to take feedback for any of these 4. I'm going to ask Ian, do you resonate with any, which of these do you resonate with, or that you have personal experience with that you could vouch for or say more about?
I would say breaking them into smaller tasks I resonate with. One of my goals for this year was to memorize the ISV Nectarian verses. So I've broken it down into smaller tasks. Instead of trying to memorize all of it at once, picking 2 or 3 at a time, and deciding that every morning when I'm in the shower, I'm going to utilize the time by singing it then over and over again. And I find that slowly and steadily then what seemed impossible to me, slowly I start to increment and make progress. And like for me, memorization is the hardest thing in the world. Like I can't memorize things that often. So for me, this is like my way to take small steps towards a bigger goal.
Yeah, and I like that point you made when you're doing other things. Once you're motivated and you know you're moving towards the goal, then there's a sense of filling in any of the downtime. And the time seems so precious that, oh, I need this extra time to practice it. Especially since you mentioned memorization, although it's just a step or two away from the idea of goal setting. If that's one of your goals, trying to recall things, it's almost like in physical endeavors like calisthenics, like so let's say you're doing push-ups or something like that. You only get stronger if you actually do push-ups. If you think about it and you don't do them, you don't really get stronger. You just think like, I'd like to do 15, but unless you do 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever you can do now, and you really push, then you can't do it. And the same with memorization. Unless you take that agonizing time where like, oh, I can only remember the first 2 words and I can't remember the other. I always find that that's the time when I'm actually memorizing. In fact, I was talking to my brother about this once. He's a musician, and I was saying, when do we actually learn? Because he's always memorizing pieces that he plays on the piano. And then it's like, when do we learn actually? And he was telling me the way he felt about how, if he's practicing mindlessly, he may be playing something, but he's not really thinking about it. And also when he gets to a hard part, he doesn't really push himself, then he doesn't learn. But it's in that time when you feel that sort of, it's almost a fear of facing the unknown, and can I really do this? Can I bridge the gap? And you go for it and you try to push and try to remember it. You get strength of mind. Thanks, Ayan. That was helpful. Madurisaki, what thoughts do you have about these points?
I actually have a question, Marge, because I feel that I'm running into this problem quite often. So for memorizing verses, I've set like a goal for myself, at least with Prahlad Maharaj's prayers, of like 2 verses a day just to memorize, so then I can like be familiar, since we have 129 days left and it takes me a while to like get familiar with the verses. But what I'm running into is that one day like I'll be too busy and then I'll only get through 1 verse, and then I'll be like, okay, I'll do the next verse tomorrow, and then the next day I'll have 3 verses to memorize, and then it gets like too much work. So I was wondering, um if you've ever, like, say for reading the Bhagavatam, if you've ever been in a situation where you were too busy during the day and you weren't able to read. Do you usually just pile it on and do it like the next day, or have you never run into that situation before?
All the time. Run into it all the time, especially in traveling, as I never know what my schedule is going to be when I show up somewhere. One thing that I do is I try to be always ready for the gaps. So, for instance, if I land somewhere and they pick me up in a car, I actually carry with me that little speaker system I have. And then I have it in my bag. And I also have my book or whatever I'm trying to keep reading or memorizing in my bag. And as soon as we get in the car, and if I haven't seen the person in a long time, hi, how are you doing? Fine, how are you? Then I say, do you want to hear a couple verses? And then they'll go, sure. I mean, who's going to say no? And then I'll just start reading my my pages, and everyone feels happy, especially me, because I'm making progress. So I try to look out for those little gaps. And the main thing is for me is to keep the transcendental vibration going. It may not be neat, may not be pretty, but somehow or other keep it going. And as far as uh, tackling a long list of things to memorize, find that I keep in mind that the main principle is exposure. If I'm not getting it one way, I try to get it another. If my mind isn't cooperating one way, I try to feed it in another way. And the main thing is just to stay connected with it as much as possible. And what I find is if I keep going over it, like listening to it, like I've found if I listen to a particular kirtan that has some special feature to it, I'll find myself walking around singing it later. It just sticks in the mind because the mind has its own recording equipment that just picks it up. So I try to keep that principle present, that it just keep hearing it. And I was comparing notes with my godbrother Chiru, who's he knows a lot of verses and he's an excellent speaker. So we were talking to one another about, well, how do you do it? I said, well, what I do, I try to get enough time to keep doing whatever verses I'm planning to memorize. I recite them regularly because then it has effect of what I call softening them up. Because when I go in to memorize them, they're not like completely cold. I sort of have a sense of their rhythm and the parts to them. And then if I've said it enough times, for instance, I'll just show you. It's show and tell time. I have this little envelope I carry with me. And in my envelope, Exhibit A, I have all the stuff I'm learning at any particular time. It's all in here. And so, as an example, with these are Prahlad's prayers. And so what I've done is every time I recite the piece, I write down, can you see that? I'll put a number and I write down that I recited the whole chapter, and I'll put the date and where I was. So that it becomes kind of a, you want to make a notch on something. So it may be a little fruitive, but I was like, okay, I got to put my notch on this today. So I just keep doing it with any piece. And it's like, okay, I haven't memorized it yet, but at least I know it's in there somewhere. So when I go back to look at it more specifically, I already have kind of a familiarity with it. So it's not totally cold, and it tends to stick more in my mind because the mind really picks up, especially the rhythm of things. So that's a couple of ideas. And I don't know if I hit the mark, but I hope that was helpful. Any other thoughts about the first four? Could anybody remember what the first four were without looking at the notes? Yeah, Kashangi.
It was specific. Oh, so sorry. The 4 tips for setting goals.
Yes.
Okay, so the first one I remember was the 5 or 4 steps, like specific, attainable, and then realistic, timely, and measurable.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kashangi. Anybody remember the other three? The first one's the most important. Hare Krishna, Manya, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. The first one was writing things down, and I was remembering how it's like what gets written down gets done. I heard it somewhere. So that's something that that's in my mind to like remember the first point. And I remember the third one being writing your goals in the present tense, such as that I read the Srimad Bhagavatam in 5 years.
Yeah.
So
And the first one
that's
is a kind of a mantra. It goes, decide what you want and
Mhm.
write it down. And the way I conceive of it is everything in the world, including the universe, manifests from subtle to gross. And we may have a thought, a desire, hopefully a worthy one. And when we commit it to paper, which takes a little work, doesn't it? You actually have to discipline yourself to sit down and write it, because there could be so many obstacles to doing that. But once you put the desire into words and you write it on paper, it's now grossified. It's grown from just a very subtle energy of desire, and now it's on paper and ink. So it's actually taken a physical form already. And from there, when you take next steps to carry it out, it manifests more and more and more. Yeah, thanks for remembering those. Did we forget any? Did we miss any of them?
there's one
Chaitanya?
more.
Yes,
So
please go ahead, Manya.
it was breaking things in small pieces, I believe.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. All right, let's look at it again, Brajaraj Bhavana, and I'll go through a few more. Okay, start from the top, so I'll just repeat what they were. The first one is decide what you want and write it down. That's the most important, because if you don't do anything else, if you do this one, you're doing it. Second is make your goals specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Third one is write your goals in the present tense. And the fourth, break large goals into smaller tasks. Okay, let's see what the next ones are. 5, create accountability. Share your goals with others you trust. Like that's what we've been doing with the goals of memorizing verses, because we trust one another. And then it's like at a certain point, you actually have to deliver. And that really helps. It makes it motivating, right? Pooja.
I also know that if you write your goals down, there's 46% that it can happen.
That's a very high percentage. Thank you. Thank you very much. 40%, 46%, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, count me in then. That now I'm super motivated now that you said that. Okay, number 6 is make your list of goals visible and review them often. Where attention goes, energy flows. That could be really helpful, because it's easy to forget about everything that you're doing. And it's something that I always delight in, that I rediscover where I actually wanted to go. Because life can be so overwhelming. Then unless I have some self-made direction, then I just feel like I'm going along by the force of others' desires or expectations and so forth. But if I have my own heartfelt desires to attain in Krishna service, then it's a relief to actually look at them and realize, oh, I get to decide. That's one of the best things about being a living entity, is you get to decide stuff. And the next is stay on course, regularly assess and celebrate your progress. Number 8 is, if needed, adjust your goals to make them realistic and exciting. You may have to adjust them up or down. No harm. It's our own process. So if you decide it's not big enough, you can always increase it. And if you think it's too big, you can always adjust it down to a point where you can hit the goal on a regular basis, or you know that you're going to be able to make it. And then categorizing. There's so many different categories in our lives. So it's looking at those categories: spiritual, family, professional, health, fitness. Can anybody comment on that? What categories do you have in your lives that you think you could ascribe specific goals to? I'm going to ask Mukund Hari, because you're a busy oh, somebody had their hand up. Kana and Mira, and then I'll go to Mukund Hari. Tie goes to the runner, infield fly rule. Go ahead, Kana. Mira.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Well, with the category of goals, especially with the spiritual one, you know how the Krishna book and the Bhagavatam, they always have rewards at the end of the story. I know this is not good to do things for rewards, but if Krishna puts the rewards there anyways for you if you read it, it kind of motivates me to achieve the goal, because I think, well, I like mentally, oh, I'm getting a reward. And it just gives me so much excitement visualizing that I'm going to get like all these blessings. And it says in this like Dhruv Maharaj story that you'll become successful materially and spiritually, and you get like rich and live long. And so I'm like, wow, like I can't beat that. So I'm really motivated for the good luck I'll get and blessings. And so I know it's not good to have those things. You should just love Krishna just for the sake of loving him, but you can't help it if Krishna puts their words in there anyway. So
yeah, we just experienced that when we read the 4th canto. There were so many blessings coming out from in those sections, and it felt very satisfying that we were being acknowledged for having read it. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's how I feel like every youth jam. Like if I have a problem coming up and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to youth jam, so Krishna will like protect me because I'm doing spiritual activity and we're getting Maharaj's blessings. So like Krishna will solve my problem because I'm going to youth jam. So it's just like the same, the goal. I have to go to youth jam no matter what, you know. So it's
Yeah.
like that relief of problems and like rewards. So I know, I'm sorry. It's
Yeah,
not,
I like
you know,
that.
that just motivates me.
Yeah, it's like the saying, if all else fails, and it will, chant Hare Krishna. All right, let's go to
Yeah.
Punhari and then to Parvati.
Thank you so much. The reason I was smiling is actually it's uncanny. It turns out when I was a kid, um, really young, I asked my parents once that how should I pray? And this was the exact order. Like it's just a pure coincidence, but this is the exact order my father taught me how to pray. Like when you go to your temple room at home, Mukunda Hari, go there and first pray for the spiritual aspect of your life, then the family aspect, then professional was education back then. I was a little school kid, then health, fitness, and then on from there. And then obviously that was quite simplistic and easy for me to do when I was a kid because most people at school used to pray for all these other things except spiritual. So, and it was all about asking God for things, asking Krishna for things. That's how society worked back then. And for me as a kid, that was just the simplistic thing. But then I remember as I grew a little bit older and gained a little bit more understanding, then came the big reveal that you start from spiritual, you pray for family, professional, health, fitness, etc. But then at the end of the day, all of it is spiritual because you're trying to channel it in Krishna's service. So it's almost like a full circle. So then, when I remember when I grew a little bit older, like when I was around middle school, then my dad told me that now when you pray, say pray for the direct spiritual stuff, pray for family, professional, health, fitness, etc. But then pray that you may be able to do all of it uh, in a way that is ultimately spiritual, in always remembering Krishna and offering it as a service. And that's why I was smiling when I saw this list
That
because
is
it's
uncanny. That's amazing.
exactly the same order.
Yeah, yeah. And a very interesting process that you went through with praying for certain things, and just very interesting that you had a list to pray about. I was thinking that family, professional health, and how you mentioned it's all, you had a revelation how it's all fits into the spiritual category anyway, because they're all in supporting roles anyway, right?
They're all in supporting role Maharaj. And another thing, like for me, even in my professional work now, it's all about being very like structured in one sense. So I needed some kind of structure as to how to communicate or how to pray, etc. So that worked. But then another thing I was kind of made to realize is uh, this is also in some way these goals. I don't know if the writers of this document thought about it in this way. They may have. Is that it's some sort of a hierarchy if we really think about it, because these are the things which matter to us in terms of uh, also in terms of time horizon, in the sense that spirituality stays with us forever. Family stays with us for a very long time, but our professions change much more often than that. Health and fitness constantly fluctuates, but uh, and also in terms of how important each of these are to our life. So
Yes. And which comes to another point, which we can talk about at another time, perhaps, which is prioritization. And that's almost a separate exercise. I mean, it is goal setting, but it's equally as powerful to take time to really think about what's most important. What order do things go in? And then look at how you're doing it in your life now. What are you putting first? And so forth. It's a real shake-up exercise. Okay, we're coming back to Parvati and then to Ranchor.
So like one of the spiritual goals, I could have is like I usually do 10 to like 16 rounds of chanting a day. So like I could hire that to like 30 or like 25 or something.
Yeah, maybe on special days, because then it goes with that SMART thing, where they're attainable. As if you start doing 30 rounds a day and your parents come and say, "Are you going to go to school today?" And then you say, not really, because I'm chanting 64 rounds a day now. It may not work, but if you make a plan that, okay, on certain days when I have a day off or something like that, then I can increase. Then you can custom make them so that they're attainable. Nice, Parvati. That's the first place your mind goes, is to chanting more rounds. Very interesting and revealing. Okay, Ranchor.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I had a question regarding the nature of spiritual goals specifically. I'm noticing that a lot of our like practice, there's like, I mean, with like fitness goals, it's a little bit more controlled on your side. Like if you like eat a max amount of calories and you work out for a set amount of time, you're gonna make progress, you're gonna lose weight, you're gonna gain muscle or whatever. But for spiritual goals, since there's like a combination of like the mercy from the Guru Parampara, and also like the fact that some of the milestones are more on a like the haste for the holy name is not really a measurable thing. Like it's obviously, I don't know how reasonable it is to be like, okay, I'm gonna be a pure devotee by December 31st, the end of the year. Because we also have the factor of like Guru's mercy and all these other things. So can you speak a little bit more on like what types of spiritual goals we should set? Obviously, we can't set goals for like ultimate success or something, but should our goals, when we're talking about spiritual goals, should they be more like incrementally on sadhana or like incrementally on seva? And then also like how much more do we need to go to take those goals and see them actually become tangible spiritual progress?
Well, we could take the example of the six Goswamis. As you know, Srinivasacharya sings Sankhapurvaka Namagana Nativi Kalavasani Krito, which means, who can say what that means? Sweta Manjari, what does that line mean? Sankhya Purvaka Namagana Nativi Kalavasani Krito. It
Can I
means,
teach you?
yes, go ahead.
Okay, I might need a second to look it up.
Don't look it up. I'll tell you. Sankhya, what does Sankhya mean?
I think of like Sankhya Asana Yoga. Is that like the material nature? Or
Yeah,
is
what
that
about the material nature? They're counting the different elements, right? So there's a sense of counting things. So Sankhya Purvaka
is
means,
it is it the principle that like what gets counted? Is this like why we have 16 rounds, 108 beads? Is
yeah,
it
but just in and of itself, the meaning of Sankhya Purvaka means numerical strength. And it
hmm,
means that the Goswamis counted everything they did.
hmm,
So, in answer to your question, Ranchor G, there's a way that they kept track of everything. So there's this sense that, okay, well, like some people say, this happens a lot. It's like, yeah, I chant. I just chant in my mind, and I'm always chanting. So I really don't need to chant 16 rounds. Have you ever heard that one before? But that's not what the Goswamis did. The Goswamis, like Raghunath Das is described as, he counted and he was so strict about it. It was like lines on stone. He wouldn't deviate from it ever. And you have Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, like he's chanting, but he's telling all his followers, he's saying, you finish your number every day, no matter what happens. Even if there's a world crisis, you got to finish your rounds. That's the idea. So you can take that. That's easily applicable to this. It's almost identical with the idea of physical goals, because you say, okay, how many days am I going to exercise, and how many calories am I going to eat a day? I mean, nowadays it's down to a science. People who are actually working on, you know, getting physical health, they're really meticulous, or they can be, about that. So in the same way, we can follow that part and count everything. One of the reasons people don't count is because they really don't want to do it. And like, say if you didn't have counter beads, then you wouldn't be accountable. because you're just like, yeah, I think I did it. That's not good enough. You actually have to hit the number. So yeah, Sankhya-purvaka namagana natibi means count your pages, count your mantras. And someone might say, well, that sounds really fruitive. No, it's not. It's it's being realistic. You're in a body with a mind that fluctuates and wants to do this, that, every something different every day. So at least hold fast to that part. And the sound vibration, everything will come out in the wash, basically. And of course, you can make quality goals too. Like let's just say with japa, I commit to practicing bringing my awareness to the chanting rather than just standing mindlessly. That's a goal you can make. And it's although it's qualitative, you can measure that. You could actually make a little chart and say, I'm going to rate myself every day. How well did I chant my rounds today on a scale of 1 to 10? Like what would you say for today? What would you give yourself, Ranchor?
Maybe like a 6.
Yeah, it's like one of those if you were if you were an Olympic judge, have you ever seen, like they're doing the flips and everything. Oh, they almost nailed the landing, and everyone holds up their thing. Switzerland gave you an 8, somebody gave you a 6. You can give yourself a number. How did I do? And if you say, I'm going to try to hit a 7 every day on my japa, these types of things. It's easily transferable. And then if you attend to those, the details and getting them done, then being in the vibration like that, you'll notice that you're making spiritual advancement. Okay, Sweta Manjari.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. I also have a question, but it's a little bit tangential from goal orientation. It has more to do with like the external representation of meeting spiritual goals. So if that is not something that we want to bring up right now, then I can ask it later.
No, I think it's all related. Anything goes
Okay.
here on Youth Jam.
Okay, sounds good.
It's a free
Well,
room.
so this isn't about goal setting at all. It's more about I've been thinking a lot about in Krishna consciousness. It's a very internal process. However, we look to our leaders and authorities and even our own bhakti in a way of how much we're checking off. And I think this is something I personally relate with because I have been one to keep checking and checking and checking. And I think that definitely checking off like how many pages of Bhagavatam you read and how much chanting you do is very, very important. Like nothing to be said about that. But it's also that just because someone has read so much and chanted so much and been a devotee for this many years, the number does not make them a devotee. It's the qualities that make them a devotee. So I feel like we measure like how much seva are you doing, how much are you reading, how much are you chanting, just so we can have a scope of other people's internal process, because you can't see inside, only Krishna can see inside. But I feel like the issue with that can sometimes be, this is a very nuanced subject matter, but people we can like pedestalize them, and that can be bad for our own spiritual life. And when people have that kind of power because of the numbers, other people might look up to them, even if the Vaishnav qualities aren't exactly where they should be. But if we're already looking up to them, then it's like am I wrong? Like that there's a power dynamic that comes from these high numbers. This is just a lot at once, but this is just a few. I don't know if the question is even apparent in what I'm saying.
Well, then here's what you do. Form a question in 1 sentence with no semicolons. Just state it straight out. What's your question? The drum roll. Go ahead.
When bhakti is an inherently internal process, how can we reconcile measuring everything with numbers and thus there's semicolons and thus giving perhaps power to the people with more numbers? Oh gosh, this is not a sentence, but numbers over qualities. Sometimes we can get distracted. How do we avoid
Yeah,
that?
I think this goes to Niyamagraha. And it's a concept that's been thought about by Rupa Goswami, obviously. That's why he gave this word, Niyamagraha. So Niyamagraha, as you know well, I'm just repeating what you already know. Niyamagraha, Niyamagraha. Niyamagraha means you're doing it for the numbers and you really don't think about it. It's just, I did it. I chalked it off. And perhaps there might be some, as you're suggesting, maybe some ego in it or some superficiality in that either from the side of the person who's doing it or the people who are admiring. It was like, oh, you did that many? And we find in certain cases, like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta railed against those who would go into a solitary place and then imitate Haridas Thakur. He said, if you're going there and your sense of ego is like, hey, look, I'm Haridas Thakur. What are all you losers doing out there in the world? Then what is your chanting? It doesn't amount to anything. And on the other side, you don't want to lose that sense of keeping track because that goes the other way. It's something I just mentioned. Someone may say, oh, you guys are just materialistic. You're just counting all the time. No, you have to, Rupa Goswami is saying you have to be right in the center of it. You have to keep honest and keep doing your japa. Otherwise, the mind is like a wild animal. You leave the cage open at night, say, oh, he's cute. And the next thing you come out, he ate your whole family. So the mind will do that. So you have to keep both sides. And there's nothing wrong, as I was saying, with making qualitative goals. Like, think about Rupa Goswami. He says, Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasti chet pranati bishta bhajantamisham shushushaya bhajanam vignam ananya manya nindari shunya hridamitsata sangalabhya. You're waiting to see if I'm going to stick the landing, right? So here he says it's a bit qualitative here because he says somebody who says Hare Krishna in your mind offer obeisance, somebody who's attained Diksha should put him on a pedestal because, hey, they're chanting Hare Krishna. Who cares if they're a little puffed up? Hey, look at they're chanting. They're a api chetsu duracharo. So what if they're slightly worldly? At least they're chanting. They're going for it. They took a vow. But he says ultimately what we're looking for is nindadi shunya. Is their heart becoming non-envious and pure? And so we have both things going on at the same time. So that's the genius of Rupa Goswami in answering your question. He puts it all in one word and says, here it is in a package, stay in the middle path. Hey, look, we have Pakya and Puja. They're teamed up again. Go ahead.
So can I just say one of my goals?
Oh, yeah. Now we're getting personal. Go ahead. This is getting interesting now.
So one of my goals is whenever I'm chanting, I usually chant towards the end of the day. So I want to more balance it out throughout the whole day so I can think of Krishna throughout the whole day.
Okay, did anybody get that? Because I kind of missed it. What was that, Manya? Did you catch it?
Yes. They were mentioning that they've seen themselves chant during later parts of the day, so they want to spread it out so that they can remember Krishna throughout the day.
I see. So sometimes you've left your chanting till later in the day, and now you want to make sure that you have it equally distributed throughout the whole day. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Very nice. I like that a lot. Someone,
And my goal is to be organized, and so I have more time for Krishna.
in what ways would you think about becoming more organized?
Probably doing more of my stuff in like the mornings or stuff like that, and then probably like the chanting in the afternoon.
I see. Yeah, that's nice. Know what you're going to do before the day starts and get it done early so then you have time to do your japa. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. All these are, principles that Prabhupada followed. He was very organized. In fact, some of his personal servants talked about how when Prabhupada traveled, as soon as they get to the destination, he'd have the assistant set up his desk exactly the way it was in the last place. So he didn't waste any time looking for things. He knew exactly what he needed for his service and exactly where he wanted it. He was also really careful about locking up important documents and any assets he had. He'd keep them double locked, locked in a bag, locked in an armoire. He saw everything as Krishna's property. You'll notice that on the Jaladuta and on the way to New York and so forth, he kept strict accounts also. Every penny he spent, he kept an account of it. This all goes to organization, doesn't it? Pooja and Pakia? Who was that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out who's who. Pakia, raise your hand. Okay. Pooja, as far as organization, like, does some of those things resonate? Like what Prabhupada did? And that's the kind of thing you're thinking about too, staying organized, right? Being on a schedule. Say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So let's go back to the document. What else do we have? Okay. Here's one of my favorites. Use various time frames. This one's powerful. 1 minute goals. Sometimes we think of goals like, oh, it's got to be 3 months or a year, 5 years, and so on. And that's true. But what about a 1 minute goal? Sometimes when you're feeling unmotivated or you're distracted by something that you feel is not so helpful, you might say, like, let me make a 1 minute goal. And then you can really go for it in 1 minute. Let's just do an interview here of Sri Tulsi. What do you think you could do in 1 minute? And what do you think about 1 minute goals?
I think the 1 minute goals can be really helpful. For example, in my academics, like sometimes in English, I have to memorize poems and sonnets. So I like set like a timer and to see how much I can recite in under 1 minute. So then I do the same thing with slokas as well. Each month I try to take like one of Srila Prabhupada's books, like Bhagavad Gita and Nectar and Instruction, and I try memorizing slokas in under like a certain period of time to see how much you can really collect.
Fantastic. Thank you for reinforcing the principle. I like the show and tell again. This is a little timer I bought. It's a countdown timer. So you can set up to an hour on it. Now it's an hour because it's got green. Or if I want to move it back down here to 1 minute, once I set it, all of a sudden a surge of energy comes through my mind and body because like, uh-oh, I have 1 minute to finish this. And so that helps. And then an hour, oh boy, can you do a lot in an hour, especially get momentum? Or how about a day? You say this day is for finishing this or these things, a week. And then another one of my favorites besides the 1 minute, they're all good, but the 1 minute and the 30 days are my two favorites because the 1 minute gets me out of the doldrums. When I'm just tired or I don't want to, I say, okay, 1 minute, just take 1 minute. And then everything changes. And 30 days, there's so much you can do in 30 days, but you can also tolerate a lot in 30 days. There's so many things you say, it's only 30 days, but it's 30 days is such a huge chunk of your year. So if you set a 30-day goal, it can put you on a new course. You can add it to your other things and make it a small thing that you do every day for 30 days, and it can really move you. And then, of course, there's 1 year goals, 5 year goals. Like right now, we set a goal to distribute at least 100,000 Srimad Bhagavatam sets by 2026. And that will be a 5 year goal completed once we hit it. And then that kind of becomes a underlying force in your life that like, okay, I got a 5 year goal. I got to keep moving on it. But how about this one, a lifetime goal? Or how about setting a goal for a 100-year goal? What does that mean? Brajaras Bhavana, what do you think about the concept of a 100-year goal? How old are you now?
Hare Krishna. I think I lagged, Marge. Did you ask me something?
Yeah. How old are you?
I'm 19.
So what if you set a 100-year goal? What would that mean?
That means I have 81 years left, maybe.
No, a 100-year goal from now.
Oh, from now. So I'd be 119.
It could mean two things.
Or I'm dead.
It could mean that you're going to live to 119, or it could mean the goal extends into your next life. Why not think like that? Because nobody thinks like that. They'll think like this one, that one. But what if you think of like, what's my 100-year goal? And most people, except for probably you, would not live to 119. But if you're thinking long term, past the finish line, like in a race, you never stop at the finish line or slow down until you hit it. You go right across it. You break the tape, right? When you're running across. So it's the same thing with this lifetime. You think, what's my 100-year goal where I'm going to cross it and go into the next life? Okay, a couple of quotes. Disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. This is from Prabhupada. And when one is certain that Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, and friend of everyone and everything, then one can, with a steady mind, bring about peace. So if you don't have an ultimate goal and have this sense that I'm trying to reach Krishna, then your mind will be disturbed. Next one is, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. You know who said that? I'll give you a hint. It was an animal. I'll give you another hint. It was in the drama called Alice in Wonderland. It was a rabbit. Okay, and the next one, Prabhupada used to say, drops a day wear stone away. Drops a day wear stone. It was very helpful for goals, isn't it? Because you think like, oh, that's just too small. Nothing's too small if you're consistent. Nature has that way of acting on various substances that you think, oh, it's impenetrable. No, it isn't if you're consistent. Another one I like, inch by inch, it's a cinch. If you can't do it, the way you want, don't worry. Just do what you can right now. Even 1 inch will get you there. You just keep doing it over and over again. One that's not on here, but it's in a similar vein for encouraging consistency is that a big shot's just a little shot who keeps on shooting. Never give up. And then my friend Paramahamsa, it seems almost so simple that you could just skip over it, but goals are potent. He always likes to say that, and he wrote it in a book once that he wrote, goals are potent. And just remember that the goals have a power in them. So utilize them. Take time to sketch out what you want, decide what you want and write it down, and then think about it. Reorganize your goals because they really will direct you. And then finally, I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination. And that kind of is what the essence of goal setting is. Oh, there's more? Oh, yeah. The last one. William H. Murray. Does anybody know William H. Murray? What he's famous for? Climbing, first one to climb the Himalayan peak, the Mount Everest, before they had fancy equipment and stuff like that. It was a big deal back then. He said, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. Any reflections about the goal setting process or the conversation in general? If there are any takeaways you have from the session today? Yes, Anapayini Bhakti.
Hare Krishna. I had 2 points. The first being about one of the principles that was written down was writing your goals down and putting them somewhere where you can see it. I already spoke about this earlier, but last spring for our spring quarter in school, I wrote down all my goals for spring. And what I did was I wrote it on a really fancy piece of paper and like used cursive and like drew flowers and colored the whole thing in the background and wrote each goal in separate colors. And I put it up on my wall right in front of my desk. And since I had put so much effort in creating this beautiful visual to remind me of my goals, I did not have the like discipline or strength to pull it down. So every day when I didn't want to stick to my goals, I saw that, and it really reminded me to push through and persevere with the goal, mainly because I didn't want to waste all the time I did doing that artwork. So I wanted to share that.
I
No,
really like that a lot. And I've heard it in relationship to journaling. Sometimes some people I've heard speak about journaling say they go out and find the most expensive journal they can find, blank, like a blank book, but it's a quality thing because then they feel that, yeah, I better write some quality things in it too. It's a similar principle. Brilliant. I love that. It's enticing actually. When you hear about that, it's like, oh, why can't I do that? Take your time. It's your life. You get to decide which ways to go and which kinds of things to put on it. Thanks, Anapayini Bhakti. Excellent. What
and
else? Yes, please go ahead.
oh, okay. Yeah, I had one more point about the last principle, which was about separating your goals into different categories. So that's actually how I approached my goal setting this year. But what I did was I first started off with intention setting, which is really, really helpful. So, for example, for my spiritual intention was to stick to the simple path strictly. And that was the mindset I was in to be able to tackle all of my goals. And I realized that setting an intention or mindset to be in when you set those goals is really, really helpful because it reminds you of what is important and makes you want to stick to those goals. So I did that in separate aspects, such as like my relationships, my fitness, etc. And having this sort of mantra or thing to stick to throughout was really helpful. Like, for example, for my classes, I have an intention per class to remind me through the quarter exactly what I want to get out of it and what effort I'm putting into it. So whenever I'm feeling, whenever my mind's like taking me different directions, I can look to what I wrote before and stick to that.
That's brilliant. It's so helpful. Nirkula and I do that when we're traveling. For instance, before we got to the youth yatra, we took some time to sit there and say, why are we doing this? What's our goal? What do we want to have be the outcome? And if you take a little time before you do anything and say, what do you want to have come out of this? It makes such a huge difference to stay focused. That was very helpful. I like the term intention setting. That's a really important concept. I'm keeping it. Okay, a couple more. What did you take out of this session since I burned up the whole hour and a half? I need a little justification here. Yes, Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna. This was a little on the point of consistency that you've just mentioned most recently, about 10 minutes ago. And it reminded me of how it's not so much about goal setting as it is literally just following the goals, but I like the trend that we kind of set at the Youth Yatra, both this year and last year, where we started sort of, at least my goal was to start memorizing these verses in like the chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Last year we started with chapter 15, and then this year we started with chapter 8. And it was a little before the beginning of the year, which before like these yatras and everything, like 4, 5, 6 years ago, it used to be the idea was we'll start on January 1st. So December 31st, until then, we have like whatever we want to do. It's like sort of get it out of the way. But I noticed it was a lot more helpful to start uh, working toward these goals before you even start the year, because we talk about these like setting goals and everything about a week or 10 days before the year actually starts. So I just noticed that it was really a lot more helpful starting it before, just start whenever you can, which is, it's not like you have to start on January 1st at 8 a.m. or whatever, but it's a lot more natural and it feels a lot more, uh, yeah, just natural and organic when you're doing it. It feels more of a intuitive process once the year has already started, and then because you've already been doing it for several days. Um, so yeah, that so far it's been helping me. It's been about 2 weeks, and I feel like it's just second nature already to me.
Nice. Yeah, and get a little momentum going into it. And that's a good point. You can do anytime. It's not that, at the new year. I say this a lot because I really feel it. It's exciting being a human because you can be self-directing. You just have to take the time to think about it and don't mindlessly go through your life and say, oh, whatever happens, or I'm being controlled by others. Like, okay, well, take charge. There are subtle laws of the universe that work, and you have to apply them. Okay, we have a couple more here. Kirtaniya Gora.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I learned how to goal set like better because like I didn't really know like how to like goal set because like I didn't really like set that much goals this year, and like now that like you like gave those like smart like things and stuff, like it's like easier for me to like write down and like set goals.
Fantastic. You just made my whole day, Kirtaniya Gora, not only with your name, but also what you just said. Uh, Maybe Balaram, you can share the document, as ragged as it is, and a little disheveled. I mean, you could put it in this whatever that venue is we have, so everyone can download it. My handyman. I told him 4:30, but there's 2 minutes left. Okay, Brajaras Bhavana.
I'll be really quick. I was
That's all
just
right. Take your time.
Thank you. I was reflecting on 2 points. The first one was point number 7 on the document: stay on course, regularly assess and celebrate your progress. I think I tend to not I tend to be inflexible with my goals, but I found it a lot easier to improvise over time when I realized, okay, maybe this is a little too much for me, or this isn't enough. I'm happy. I like this. Maybe I can increase it. And it doesn't have to happen every year. It can happen whenever we want, like Chaitanya was saying. And the second point I had was on the power of consistency. Usually my goals have been more um, more general over longer spans, like 30-day type or maybe a 3-month type. And so consistency isn't really in part of it. It's more about the whole process and just working through it as time goes on. But there are many days where I might just not even think about that goal. But having daily goals, such as my rounds, for example, or just some reading goal and so on, it's so powerful when you have that every single day because it gives you something to hold on to every day, even if you had a very weird day or a bad day. You know you've accomplished something at least, which is very encouraging.
It is, isn't it? I agree with you. And don't forget the 1 minute goal. Our little friend, the 1 minute goal. Okay, we'll have to do these quickly because my handyman's going to come back. I got to pay him. Okay, Manya.
Hare Krishna. With the 1 minute goal, I have exactly 1 minute to make this reflection.
I'm setting my time. No, go ahead.
I really related with setting goals any time of your day and just setting them throughout the year as well, because I feel like when the new year comes around, everyone's writing their resolutions. But it was really nice and relieving a little bit to hear that setting goals was something that I could do throughout the year, especially with the verses, like we said, chapter 7 by Gita Jayanti, and like those small goals I feel like kept me going. So that's something I would take. And one more thing is checking in with yourself about how you're doing with those goals is also something that I found to be useful, and like writing them down as well. And like, like a monthly reflection, like how did I do in my long-term goal? So I feel like that's something that I'm gonna try to implement next year.
Yeah, it's something that came to my mind too. It's sort of celebrating the goal, acknowledging it, and it also crosses over of what I'm about to say into what Ranchor Prabhu said is, can they be more qualitative? And there's a section in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Prabhupada's quoting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta about how to become free from anartas, or at least he's cataloging the anartas, and then talks about purifying the heart, becoming free of anartas. And then he said, when you find that your heart has become completely cleansed, then you can invite Krishna to come sit down on the altar of your heart. Then he says, then you can hold a feast and invite everybody to attend. He said, hold a festival because your heart has become purified. There was one other hand up, and I scared you away because I started getting all Rajoguna on you here. So who was that? who was raising your hand. I didn't want to miss it or make you feel that you couldn't do it because we ran out of time. No? All right, maybe next time. Anyway, it's a nice topic. We can set goals at any time of the year, any time of the day. It's our prerogative. And also, it's a good time at the beginning of the year because everyone else is doing it. It seems like you have a fresh start. Please do a little work on this. Get some paper, get a pen, and it really does help. There's been studies done, of course, it was by the Bic Pen Company, that when you write it with pen and paper, there's a sense of I'll use Chaitanya's word, more organic. Kind of goes in deeper, but do it. Try writing some things down, and next week we can share a little bit and not take the whole time, but we can share a little bit about what the process was, and if you feel really bold about it, you might even share some of your goals, what you're looking at. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madha Mohan, Shri Shri Radha Golokananda, Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish. Who's in Ohio?
Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Natavar.
Anybody else want to make a shout out while I'm making this prayer for their deities? If you so desire. Yes, go ahead.
Radha Madhav in Baltimore and Radha Madan Mohan in Potomac.
Haribo.
Kishore in Chicago.
Jai Kishore. Big fan, big fan. I used to be there. So please, if you so desire, empower us to and motivate us that we may set goals in your service, so that we may become efficient servants following in the footsteps of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who set the ultimate goals and by doing so set the world on fire with Krishna consciousness. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer, choose an appropriate emoji and display it on the scene. Otherwise, we can't get off the call. All right. Thanks, Ayat. Eat that frog, but not literally. Vanchakalptarusha kripasinave vachapatitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakodi vaishnaviniki jai gorpre manande haribo. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Get some paper, get a pen. Hare Krishna.